These are the pictures, yes. Now, have you given him your slides?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you better give it to him. Didn't he ask you for them?
No.
There's a slide. I'm Ted Chirac. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm an investigative reporter and documentarian. We have just completed the first full.
Thank you very much, Ted. Today, I understand that Mr. Chirac is going to show you some excerpts from a seminar which we did at the University of Arizona in January relating to the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, a documentary which was prepared utilizing the services of Herbert McDonald, who is a criminalist, an expert, a man of high repute, and a fellow within the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. I don't know whether you want to show that first.
No, I would like to go into your statement first. It would be more appropriate.
All right.
Read it out.
The statement that I have given to some of you in the room today reads as follows, and I'll read it for the purpose of the transcription, and I trust that it will be recorded properly then. Dr. Robert J. Joling, President of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, an independent organization of more than 1,500 forensic scientists, was in Washington, D.C. today to view the premiere showing of the documentary film The Second Gun, recently updated and by international consultants in medicine, science, and law, emphasizing that he was not speaking at the moment. As the official voice of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, Joling stated that his personal convictions have led him to support a congressional review of the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King. Joling stated, too many persons of excellent scientific expertise and repute now conclude that there exists reasonable doubts relative to each of these matters so as not to warrant further blind approval of the official conclusions reached. Graciously in attendance at the first presentation of a Monday evening seminar. And Tom, again, is with us as a dear friend on this evening. During the time span from 1971 to 1975, the Division of Social
which we have conducted an initial stage. Before we go right into the slides presentation, if I may make a few remarks about the forensic pathology.
With respect to what?
With respect to this whole question of...
There is no stated official position at the moment of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, and that's the purpose of the special ad hoc investigative committee which I have appointed to look into the scientific questions that have been raised to see whether or not in fact there are unanswered questions and ambiguities which should be answered, and then to determine what methods and modalities should be used to answer those questions.
Well, am I correct in February?
No, that's incorrect. I don't know who got that story in that fashion. The story was and is, and the fact of the matter is that I am, as the president, appointing a special ad hoc investigating committee to look into the matter surrounding the criminalistics in the Robert F. Kennedy assassination. The sixth cervical vertebra of Senator Robert F. Kennedy did in fact come from the gun of Sirhan Sirhan. And the reason being that the characteristics of the exhibits which were used in the Sirhan trial just do not match. The test bullet does not match the Wiesel bullet. The Kennedy bullet does not match the test bullet. The Kennedy bullet does not match the Wiesel bullet. We've got three distinct bullets used as exhibits, and none of them match. And as a result of that, somebody has to come up with a scientific answer as to where these bullets came from.
Can you briefly go into that?
Yes, I can for a moment. Herb McDonald was, and if we can get that back on, he'll explain it to you too. But it's very clear that even if you look at the exhibits, and we have them here in bigger posters, the one that's used in the Wiesel case, for example, has two cannelure markings on the lead itself. Now, cannelures are the rings which go about the top of the lead when it's inserted into the casing. And you can see very clearly in the Wiesel bullet two markings of cannelures that go right straight across the bullet itself. In the Kennedy bullet, there's only one cannelure that goes across. In the test bullet used in a gun similar to Sirhan Sirhan's, but not Sirhan's gun, again you see the two cannelures that go across. Now, the interesting fact of this matter is that it has been stated that all of the shells which came out of Sirhan's gun were manufactured by Omark Industries, Cascade Industries up in Idaho. And if that be true, Cascade has never made a long rifle bullet with a single cannelure. It's always been two cannelures. The one in Senator Kennedy only has one cannelure, therefore it could not have been manufactured by Omark Industries. If that hypothesis is correct, then the fact of the matter becomes that a bullet other than Omark Industries was used to shoot Senator Kennedy, which lodged at the 6th cervical vertebra. Not the one that killed him behind the ear, but the one in the 6th cervical vertebra can be matched to the Wiesel bullet, and it doesn't match. It can be matched to the test bullet, and it doesn't match. Therefore, it must be a different gun.
What does this mean to the bullet that killed him? You're not talking about the one that killed him.
The bullet that killed him, the one that went behind the ear in the mastoid area, has been so destroyed as to be non-comparable. You cannot compare it to any other thing.
So no investigation can prove one way or another which bullet killed him and from what gun?
Oh no, they can say which bullet killed him, and they can also determine whether or not, in fact, and this is a fact that has to be determined, in fact, whether or not there was a bullet from a different gun. If not, we should know it. If so, that should be stated.
If the bullet was destroyed, how can you ever ascertain what gun it came from?
The one that killed him, you will not be able to ascertain which gun it came from except by direction. In other words, there's 4 that came from the rear and to the right and at a 30-degree angle upward. If, in fact, the one in the mastoid went in that direction and all other 3 going in that direction, it is safe to assume then that it would match this, but it cannot be proven. That cannot be proven.
This is in
The one
relatively
in his-
good condition, by the way.
The one that is at the 6th cervical vertebra can be determined as to whether or not it did, in fact, come out of the Sirhan Sirhan gun. That's the important thing. If it didn't, there had to be another gun.
Do you think that any scientific investigation will ever convince the vast majority of Americans what happened?
Yes, I do. I think that the American people would accept a scientifically sound investigation done by a non-governmentally controlled team of forensic scientists. I think they would accept that. I don't think they're any longer going to accept a governmentally controlled investigation. I think that time has gone by.
But wouldn't a congressional study fit your definition of government control?
No, the congressional committee, which, as I understand Congressman Gonzalez's resolution, would simply have Congress appoint a committee of 7 of Congress, which would have subpoena powers, which would have contempt powers, etc., to compel people to testify. That doesn't mean that the studies that are being done scientifically could not be done by, for example, an independent agency such as the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. If that were done in that fashion, I think the American people would be ready and willing to accept it, because the Academy has no bones to bury one way or the other. And in fact, if it comes out that we can prove the bullet, in fact, came from Sirhan Sirhan gun, we would say so. If we prove the other way, we'd also say that.
How many of your colleagues in the Academy do you think would agree with your hypothesis here?
The vast majority.
Have you gotten indications of that too?
Oh, yes,
Letter or
from-
phone call or whatever?
From conversations at the most recent meeting of the Academy in Chicago in February of 1975, since that, the letters and correspondence and phone calls which I have received from individuals.
But they're taking no position on that, have they?
Well, they won't until our investigative committee has reported back, and then this will be submitted through the executive committee to the membership if it's deemed
Is
appropriate.
your committee not?
Only, yes, there was a cover-up in the assassination of Senator Robert Kennedy, and Attorney Godfrey Isaac has, in a writ, charged that they have deliberately and intentionally covered up and suppressed and manufactured evidence. And the gun. Now, I would like Dr. Joling to comment on this as a lawyer. It may come as a surprise to many of you that Sirhan Sirhan, I'm not here to exonerate him, but he has been sentenced first to death and then commuted to life imprisonment, not with his murder weapon, but with a second gun, which has been destroyed. And we're in a dilemma. We've taken it to the High Court. It's been rejected. We have to get a congressional investigation to protect our rights, because I say this is just a clerical error. But I can tell you that this is not a clerical error. I have intelligence information that this test bullet allegedly comes from Sirhan gun, did not come from Sirhan's gun, but came from bullet gun H18602, which was destroyed by Los Angeles Police Department. The individual characteristics do not match up to the Kennedy neck bullet or to the bullet from William Wiesel of the American Broadcasting Company. And therefore, there has been a deception perpetrated upon the American people, and I am anxious for the American Academy of Forensic Sciences to look into these matters independent of my journalistic probe.
Cover up by whom?
Cover up by the California law enforcement officials, Evel J. Younger, District Attorney Joseph Buss, Los Angeles Police Chief Edward
completely independent gun that was fired.
Well, no, what we're saying is probably more truthfully put forth in this fashion. There's no question in many people's mind, in fact, nobody's mind that I know of, that Sirhan did not shoot. He did shoot, and certainly he is guilty of a crime. Nobody's trying to exculpate him. The question is whether or not the bullets which actually hit Senator Kennedy came out of Sirhan's gun. And this is the reason that there has to be a competent ballistic test. Now, there's a very simple way to do this. First, take the Sirhan gun and fire it. Compare it to the bullet at the 6th cervical vertebra of Senator Kennedy. That's one. If they say, well, that will destroy the lands and grooves, which is pure and simple hogwash, then okay, we'll just swage the barrel and bring it out, and we still can do it. Or if you don't want to do it that way, let's do a neutron activation analysis test, which Professor Vincent Gwynn has been and is now ready to do at any time they ask, and through that we'll know a lot of answers. And all we say is simply, let's get the truthful answers. It doesn't hurt the American people to know the truth, and if in fact somebody else was there, let's go find the guy if we can.
But one of those bullets that you're showing, you're saying was neither Sirhan's gun bullet
significant.
or the bullet found in the vertebrae.
That's correct. And one of the bullets that we're showing to you is the test bullet. That's the one that came out of a gun which is similar to but not Sirhan's gun.
And that was used in evidence.
And that was used
In
in
violation, and that's where the problem is. Now, that's why I want Dr. Joling to comment on it.
There's an absence of powder mark from the front, or on the front of the ear of Senator Kennedy. If you remember on the film, you remarked that there was no powder residue on the front of the ear. If you're shooting from the front in that close proximity, you would have to have residue on that side. All of these shots came from the right, the rear, at a 30-degree angle upward. Now, the question has been raised, and people have asked it rightfully so and properly so. Well, if Senator Kennedy was turning to his left to shake hands with someone, could not then Sirhan have lurched forward and fired and had this particular type of trajectory occur? The answer to that is quite unlikely for this reason. First of all, if you ever had met Senator Kennedy, he was not a very tall man. As I recall him, he was probably 5, 6, or 7, something of that nature. Very slight man, maybe 145 to 150, 155 pounds, somewhere in that area. If you turn to his left, and Sirhan had been in front of him, now you're putting him at a 90-degree angle, you still have to go another 90 degrees to get him behind Senator Kennedy. If he is standing in front, and as Euchre has stated, and I have seen the sworn statements of Euchre, recent statements of January and February of this year, the maitre d', who grabbed Sirhan, if Euchre is between Senator Kennedy and Sirhan, then it still has to be explained how in the world he got behind the senator to continue any such shooting. Because he was here, if the senator did turn, he'd still have to be over to the 90 degree to the right to get the shots from behind and at a 30-degree angle upward. And all four, as far as we can determine, all four of the bullets that entered either the senator's body or his clothing, one entered his clothing, 3 entered his body, all of them were from the right, the rear, at a 30-degree angle upward. Now, this is quite inconceivable, even from a logical standpoint, that this could occur from a man standing in front of you. Now people say, well, maybe he was closer than 7 or 8 feet, or 2 feet, or 1 feet. Understand you have to get to 1 to 3 inches maximum distance to get the powder marks behind the right ear. Not 1 foot, not 2 feet, not 3 feet, not 7 or 8. 1 to 2 to 3 inches from his ear. No other way could those powder marks have been left on the mastoid behind the right ear. And there was no powder in the front of that ear. Therefore, it was again substantiating it's from the rear. These questions ought to be answered.
I want to know the role of Lieutenant Manuel Pina, who was really the brains behind the Houghton investigation, who allegedly received training by the CIA, and why there was a lot of deep pressure. They could not discredit Mr. Harper, so they tried to discredit his findings. They created this story. It's calculated, if you read the Los Angeles Times story by Dave Smith on August the 16th, 1971, they took 5, there were calls from media from all over the world. They called that press conference the last moment. Now, if you don't share my views that there was a cover-up, you are invited, and Gene McDaniels is here to see the film. There isn't, whether it was Tom Pettit of NBC, members of CBS, NBC, people that have seen the film, are, you can draw your own conclusions of what is happening there, what the district attorney Bush and Neville Young are answering, not to myself, but to other members of the media, and the pressure that he is under.
Dr. Joling, for
Yes,
my
sir.
benefit, or maybe some others, could you very succinctly
There is a discrepancy between the various exhibits in the Sirhan case. First of all, there's exhibit number 47, which is a reproduction of the striations and grooves and lands on the bullet removed from the 6th cervical vertebra of Senator Kennedy's neck. This bullet contains a single marking of one single cannelure. The test bullet, which was used from a gun similar to, but not Sirhan's gun, shows 2 cannelures, and none of the lands and grooves and points of comparison match the Kennedy exhibit number 47. Lastly, the other problem came by because of the fact that the known bullet shot by Sirhan into reporter Wiesel of ABC shows 2 cannelures, and none of these particular points of similarity would match. In other words, the points that should match don't match. They don't match the test bullet, and they don't match the Kennedy bullet. As a result of this, there are very serious questions being raised by forensic scientists as to whether or not this could, in fact, have been a bullet from another gun. Now, there should be some tests made to determine whether or not, in fact, without any question of a doubt, another gun was shot in that room on that day, and that can be done scientifically and conclusively. And I think this ought to be done.
And I want to make up one.
One, two, three, four, five. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3. Well, I have no reason, see no reason why it isn't recorded.